Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
And here we are with our continuing look into celebrating Women's History Month by focusing on women saints of the Catholic Church.
Yes. And today we are going to talk about Saint Edith Stein, also known as Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, which was her name when she joined a religious order after Theresa of Avila and Benedict. And the fact that the cross, once she converted, was a very big theme in her life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because Saint Teresa Benedicta was not always a Catholic. She was, in fact, a convert, and if I recall, she converted under some really not entirely as usual circumstances.
Well, it's safe to say that Saint Teresa Benedicta's entire life was lived under rather dramatic times. She was born in Germany in 1891.
Yes,
Okay.
although that's now in part of Poland.
Yes, but it was the German Empire then.
Mm-hmm.
And
she was born on Yom Kippur.
Nice.
Which is a big day because her family was Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she died in 1942, so there's a lot of drama in those 50 years.
And it's one of the
towards
few
the end.
saints that, because of the situation, the circa on the age is on the day she died, not born.
Yeah. We know when she was born. She died about this time. But we'll get into that.
Yes.
So the 12th of October, 1891.
All right. So, first, as we often go over patronage, she is a patron, one of the 6 patrons of Europe. She is the patron of converted Jews, of martyrs, of people who have lost a parent, in World Youth Day. So, she's a new one, but she's got a lot of stuff. But, you know, some of them are new things, like World Youth Day. She was the youngest of 11 children.
Wow.
Good-sized family, all right.
She was raised Jewish, but she became an atheist around age 14. Her father died when she was 2, so that's probably why she was the youngest.
Yep, that's
And
right.
didn't have any more.
Yep.
She was first of her class in the equivalent of high school at the time.
Big brain.
So then she went on to university.
Of Breslau.
Yep.
Breslau. You transposed the
Oh, did she?
Mm-hmm.
See, I read it as it was typed. So, yeah, Breslau. That makes more sense.
And she went in to study German and history, which was basically the equivalent of going and signing up to join the community college when, you know, just in case. This was her backup stuff. She's like, these are things I can deal and teach and do things with.
Yep. I can totally do this. This is safe.
Yes.
So what you're saying is she went and she got her degree in you know, liberal from the community college in liberal arts and you know
But her
general studies.
Her real interest was philosophy and women's studies.
Now, I'm sure women's studies at that point was in a very embryonic state.
Yes. In fact, she was a member of the Prussian Society for Women's Franchise.
Because at the time, there weren't a lot of places where women had the right to vote.
Yes.
One of the few places was Wyoming.
Because in Wyoming, you just need your own land. We didn't care, you know, what you looked like beside that.
Well, and they had so few people that they're like, yep, sure, we'll count the women. Absolutely. Whatever it takes to become a state.
Hey, if it helps me get into office.
Can the cows count? I'm just asking.
But
Sam Kelly's definitely wagging his tail in my direction. That's clearly a vote for me.
But she was so interested in philosophy that she actually transferred to a different school.
Yes, she transferred to
Guertingan.
And she was mentored by a rather famous philosophic. I know there's umlauts on it. I can copy
All right.
it.
This is not the time, Nate.
So Guertingan is
Earlier
actually Guertingan.
Yes, who was mentored by
Edmund Husserl?
Husserl? Some dude.
Yes, whose ideas actually on philosophy related very well with Christianity, and so like there was a lot of people that took his classes and became Christian.
Oh, nice.
He was someone who also. He was raised in a family where his dad was Lutheran and his mom was Jewish. So officially he was Jewish. But, you know, and then later on he actually was Catholic for a bit. And there's, you know, back and forth. Because he was a philosopher. So, you know, like I can't get a really good read on it because, you know.
Yep.
By and large, all the stuff about him are from philosophy sites that don't really care about his religion.
Sure.
And she also met with another philosopher
named Max Scheler.
And he was Catholic at the time and was also born Jewish. And they joined, they were like about half of this well-known group that was called the
Guertingan Circle of Phenomenology.
Phenomenology.
Mm-hmm. Which is fun. I looked at one site. They gave no info on what that is, but they told you important words for things like, I don't even remember, but like elementary level words.
Well,
nobody ever just comments on what phenomenology was. They just say, well, these people belong to the phenomenology school.
It's fairly simple. We'll start right here. You know what that part? You know what that would mean?
We're not
So
breaking the word up.
It's the
It's the study of phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
That tells me phenomena.
All right.
Phenomena.
All right.
So World War I happens
Yes, and so she became a nursing assistant at an infectious disease hospital.
because this was a nasty war and basically everybody got involved.
Yeah.
Yes. And after that, she went on to get her doctorate
Hey.
and worked as an assistant of her earlier professor.
Well, you know, when you're pursuing an academic career, that's kind of what you do.
Yeah.
Yes. And then shortly after this, because it's shortly after World War I,
Mhm.
she went and visited a newly widowed friend because her husband had died from the war,
Mhm.
and the friend had converted to Protestantism.
Yeah, it's on the road.
And she was like, she was a philosophy and atheist.
She's
and
an atheistic Jewish philosopher.
Yes, so she's like,
Christianity is a lightweight thing.
Yes, yeah, she's like,
If you need that in order to
Exactly.
get through the night, I suppose that's an okay thing.
But she was incredibly surprised with the fact that her friend was an actual woman of deep faith,
Mhm.
and the way that the religion wasn't just a cover-up that, helped her pretend like her husband wasn't dead, but helped her deal with the grief that she was dealing with and stuff.
Mhm.
And she has a quote from it that I put down because, again, that explains why she ended up picking the name of the cross as part of her name.
Suck it to us.
This was my first encounter with the cross and the divine power it imparts on those who bear it. It was the moment when my unbelief collapsed and Christ began to shine his light on me. Christ in the mystery of the cross.
As St. Paul said, he's come to preach nothing but Christ and him crucified.
Mm-hmm.
We've tried, especially in Europe at this time, to do a Christianity without the cross, and it withers and dies.
Yes. But although she still had, these, thoughts of spirituality, she had to have an actual job and stuff.
Yes.
So she...
Cursed practicalities.
So she wanted to become a professor and get a professorship. But
Yeah.
that was something women did not get at the time.
Yep.
And it also became an issue because at a certain point it was something that Jews did not get at the time.
Well, the state of Jews did not get better in Germany after World War I.
Yes.
No.
So her former professor that she was the assistant of wrote her a letter basically saying that if any woman gets this job, she should get this job.
Well, that's good.
And then she went and spent her time writing articles about philosophy and the foundations that it connected with psychology. She also spent her time reading the New Testament, 'cause she was now interested in that, and the Spiritual Exercises by St. Ignatius, which was something she said was, you couldn't just read it, you had to, experience it.
Yep. The spiritual exercises.
Yeah.
In 1921, she visited a fellow student from back in her university days.
Yeah.
You want to read her name?
Hedwig Conrad Martius. Martius.
Who had also converted to Protestantism with her husband.
Dang nabbit.
But while she was there, one night she happened upon the Autobiography of St. Teresa of Avila.
Boom.
And she started reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And she continued reading it all night long until she got done.
This is one of the true turning points in young Edith's life.
Yes. In
Yeah.
fact, when she was done, she said, when I finished the book, I said to myself, this is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Because if there's anybody who experienced in her life the cross, it would be Theresa of Avila.
Yeah.
She'd been lukewarm. She didn't have her conversion until she was 40. So this wasn't a youthful thing. This was a mature woman who was really confronting her own brokenness.
Oh,
In
sorry,
her
for a
love of
moment
shoes.
I was thinking Saint Therese, not Saint Teresa. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a piggyback thing. There's
All the
Teresa of Avila.
all the Carmelites are Theresas.
Who then inspired Teresa of Lisieux, who inspired Mother Teresa, and then back forward.
And again, we have to remember,
Benedicta.
the only reason that Mother Teresa is a Mother Teresa is because when she became religious, in her convent there was already a Therese.
And at a certain point, they were given the title of mother. You know, it was just on her. Yeah, so many Theresas.
So now something important is going to happen.
So
with her Protestant friend, she's encountered the power of the cross.
Mm-hmm.
In the writings of Teresa of Avila, she's encountered the truth.
Mm-hmm.
What is her response?
Well, on January 1st in 1922, she was baptized. I don't know exactly how it worked, but her Protestant friend that had the copy of the book was her godmother, so I assume they had some other person who was Catholic be the godmother. Because, you know, and this also happened to be the Feast of the Circumcision of Christ, which is when he became part of the Old Covenant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to become a Carmelite right away because, again, I read this book by a Teresa. All the Teresas have to be Carmelites.
It's kind of a rule.
Yeah.
I'll become a Carmelite. You can call me Teresa.
But her spiritual mentors discouraged her from going right from being baptized to becoming in a religious order.
That's reasonable. When you've just converted, you've just been reborn, you've got a lot of enthusiasm, but you may not be thinking things. You may not be making a mature decision.
Yes. So she taught at Catholic schools for a while. She was also encouraged by spiritual leaders of her to have speaking engagements because she had already been doing that as a philosopher. Mm-hmm. And her talks...
Again, huge brain.
Yes. Her talks were mostly on women's issues of the day and in general.
Yeah.
I do want to point out for anyone who's studying her, the rule is for sainthood is not that your theology is perfect, but for what you know at that time, it wasn't in, heretical error. Because this was before, like, John Paul II and said things about how, essentially only men can be priests for this reason. So it was kind of a gray area where they're like, well, maybe. And so it was a theological opinion. And she, as a very feminist person, said, well, I don't see anything, given what I know, that would prevent it. But, that's what she was working with, what she knew. Not,
and she was giving her personal opinion,
Yes.
not stating this is doctrinal truth.
Yes.
Sure.
Because, again, if you start studying her, she was very into women's issues.
Mm-hmm. Trust us. In heaven, she completely affirms that only men can be priests.
Besides the universal priesthood of all the believers.
Indeed. Indeed.
Anyway, she also worked on translating the works of Cardinal Newman and Aquinas.
Nice.
And wrote her own philosophical works. They largely dealt with her earlier ideas and connecting them with Christianity.
Okay.
Like, a large percent of the things she wrote before, they weren't against any Christian thing, but she saw it now in the light of her religion and wanted to add to it.
Okay, Jesus Christ is the truth. So if you've discovered some philosophical or psychological truth, it's not going to contradict Jesus Christ.
Okay, so I know when she was born, we're getting kind of far into her life. I have a pretty good idea of, in general, the time period we're in now, and I imagine things are... That cross, if you will, is going to become a little more really present in her life somewhere around now.
Yes, in 1933, because of the laws of the day, she was not allowed to teach because she was ethnically Jewish. So at that point, she was allowed to enter the Carmelite order. She had been, Catholic for over a decade, and they saw that things weren't, and they're like, well, maybe if you're, cloistered away.
Maybe if we put you here, you're
kind of a sanctuary.
You'll be a little safer.
Mm-hmm. So she became a Carmelite and took her final vows in 1938. The last time she saw her mother happened to be on her mother's birthday.
That's sweet.
And if you read her things of it, it's really touching. It's very much, she's still always connected with her being Jewish. So she talks about them like being, two, sisters. I forget exactly, what Jewish female of importance they connected to, but
Leah and Rachel.
Yeah, not those two, but something like that.
Yeah.
And and
Mary and her sister Mary.
And her other sister Mary.
Yeah.
Then her cousin Mary came to her. Anyway, she continued her studies and writings in the convent, and she also, one of her big things, as most people who know about, people who are in convents, the nuns that are actually cloistered away, is they're there to pray for people. So,
they make the world go round.
Yes, Teresa of Lisieux got to be the patron of missionaries, having never really gone on any mission besides the mission to get myself into a convent.
Having never left her little Carmel in Lisieux.
Get thee to a nunnery?
Exactly. Because she prayed about that. She spent her time, as one could expect in her situation, praying for the Jewish people. She says, I kept thinking of Queen Esther, who was taken away from her people precisely because God wanted her to plead with the king on behalf of her nation.
Amen. I
am a very poor and powerless little Esther, but the king who has chosen me is infinitely great and merciful. Mm-hmm. This is a great comfort.
Amen.
And one of her sisters, Rosa, was also allowed to be with her in the monastery because she converted and was a third order Carmelite. So
nice. Plus, again, 1938. That's the year of Kristallnacht, so it's getting really dire now.
Yeah.
Yes, and which is why they were sent away to the Netherlands because it's pretty far from Germany.
During the First War, even though the Germans had violated Belgian neutrality, the Netherlands had been left alone. So there was a not unreasonable hope that if war broke out again, the neutrality of the Netherlands might be respected. Mm-hmm. Certainly, it was safer than staying in Germany.
Yeah.
Yes. So, during the time that she was in Netherlands, the Dutch bishops spoke out against how the Nazis were treating the Jews, which, if you've studied any history where they discuss, why didn't, the Catholic bishops and Pope do more, it's because when they officially did something like this, the result is the Nazis took all the Catholics of Jewish origin and arrested them on August 2nd of 1942.
I would just like to point out that this clearly indicates just how crazy Nazism is, in that when reasonable authorities of the time go and say, the way that you treat this group of people is terrible.
Or doubling down on being horrible.
Well, we're actually going to grab a whole bunch more of these people and take them away to mistreat them even worse.
Well, the fact that you can't understand it is a very good thing, because that's the core of Nazism, and it's good that it seems irrational.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
it's the opposite of reasonableness.
It's like, we're doubling down.
Yeah, that's who they were.
I got a pair of twos. I'm going to double down.
That's who they were, and that's why no one misses them.
Anyway, so that was, August 2nd. So it's thought that her and her sister, because she was also taken, being ethnically Jew, died around the 9th of August.
Mm-hmm. Because the majority of people that died at Auschwitz-Birkenau died within hours of arrival.
Yeah, very quickly.
Most people were offloaded directly from the trains into the crematoria, or into the gas chambers, into the crematoria.
Especially as the war went on.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so that is, why she is listed as being a martyr. Mm-hmm. However, there is an issue with that, you might find, as a lot of Jewish people dislike that she was called a Catholic martyr. Mm-hmm. However, various popes have pointed out that essentially she is a martyr for both. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, she was Catholic, and the way that she dealt with her death was, very much in keeping with her Catholic faith. But she was there because she was Jewish. And she never once was like, I'm not Jewish, I'm Catholic. Mm-hmm. It was always, I'm a Catholic who's also Jewish.
The church is the new Israel.
Yes. Yeah. And so she wasn't one of those ones who were like, I keep Passover, but she's much like the last woman of faith that we talked about. It was very much, this is my culture, these are my people, and I can have this and still be part of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Simon the Rock Johnson, St. Paul, all 12 apostles, most of the early Christians, we are a Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they wrote the majority of the Bible.
Christianity is the fulfillment of the ancient Israelite faith in the Messiah.
Yeah.
So we had a side discussion of the fact that I looked up and read all the stuff about her as Saint Edith Stein.
I have a thing, as I have a lot of things, a little pet peeve.
He's got tons of things.
We should make a list, but we don't have enough walls. Even the ceiling.
It would make us look crazy if we wrote all of his pet peeves on the wall.
That's why I keep them in here.
Anyway.
She's almost always referred to as Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, Edith Stein. Mm-hmm. Or Saint Edith Stein, Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. Mm-hmm. In maintaining both names, it makes it really hard to know her by her religious name, whereas most people are known by their religious name. Saint Teresa of Calcutta, Saint Teresa of Lisieux. You know, Nate takes a somewhat different view.
Mike is very much of the seems to be very much of the philosophy that while there wasn't actually, there should be considered to have been an ontological change that occurred when she became Saint Teresa Benedicta, and there.
Well, it's not an ontological change, but God does change people's names when He changes, their destiny. Simon became Peter.
Yes,
Abram became Abraham.
I understand. However, in general, a person is most well known by what they were called at the time when they were doing the things that they are most well known for.
And this is where Nate's got a pretty good argument, because she was known as a philosopher as Edith Stein, and she only became Teresa Benedicta in the last few years of her life.
Yes, and I also think it's probably due to the fact that it's very much that her Jewishness was part of her identity.
Sure.
And if you see Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, you're like, oh, it's another one of the Teresas. I bet she was a Carmelite.
Well, she was.
You're not wrong, but
Mother Teresa, the only one who wasn't.
I will be a Carmelite, and you can call me Teresa.
Except for the other 5 Teresas in the convent.
No, actually, now that I think about it, should I get the opportunity at some point in time later on in my life,
religious sisters can
I'll be brother.
names.
I'll be Brother Teresa of the Discalced Carmelites.
I know.
On Twitter, there's already a Brother Teresa.
Yeah.
He types in all caps.
Yes, and I know multiple monks that have a guy saint and then Mary or some variation of.
Well, John Vianney. Jean-Marie Vianney.
Well, he was French. I just assumed that, it was being French. Anyway, so go down below and comment what name you think people should call St. Edith Stein by, or why you think one name is more popular than the others.
Or what name you think people should call me by when I somehow manage to become a Discalced Carmelite.
You could totally become a Discalced Carmelite.
Yeah, they have third order.
They're dudes.
It's less fun in the third order. I mean, no offense to those people who are in the third order, but
that's the real reason to enter religious life, for the fun.
You're like, there's all the praying of the hours, none of the cool outfits.
Seriously, all the praying of the hours and none of the cool outfits.
There's nothing that said, well, okay, I don't know how that works in the Carmelites. Like in the Franciscans, if you want to wear a brown robe, dude, you do you.
Seriously though, no offense to any people who are third order members of the Carmelites.
Please,
we love you guys.
Please
pray for us. We need it.
While you're praying for us, subscribe to our channel, ring the church bell to be notified the next time we diss the third order. And until that next time,
remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.
We really do like third orders.